this hotel. There's a party in that lobby. Be careful who you mess with, cause the hotel everybody. Miami where all that ass from, and the girlfriends got one too. Now it ain't my birthday, baby, but I wanna see you and her in your birthday suits. I was like, hey, she was like, yo. I was like, bowling, she was like, so. Wanna hit BTs, wanna hit Scarlets, wanna hit Tootsies, baby, let's go. She was more like Inga, I'm talking about a killer. I put her on the mic, beat it up like Thriller. She the best friend, said bring one more, another bad one. You already know, for sure. Miami, these girls speak my language. Russian roulette, sexy. Body speaking Spanish. Damn, I love Miami. Damn, Miami loves me. Damn, I love Miami. There's nothing like it, trust me. I got big decisions. I got two brunettes and a blonde one. On the yacht getting butt booty naked. Nah, that's Miami problem. They titties look just like Baywatch, but they ass from the 305. You can do a lot on Deco Drive, or you can do a lot on my Deco now. She said, hey, I said, leave me low. She was too hot, I couldn't say no. So I closed the tab, jumped straight in the car when I'm straight got ocho, yeah, straight to the mo. She was like a Rico when I was all in her. And if you go to Kendall, they all Kendall Jenners. Now you out of towners know what time it is. 305, welcome to the crib. Miami, these girls speak my language. Russian roulette, sexy. Body speaking Spanish. Damn, I love Miami. Damn, Miami loves me. Damn, I love Miami. There's nothing like it, trust me.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to day 2 of NFL Draft Week here on the New Era Prep Show. I'm your host, Christian Proscia. We're going to bring our esteemed guest in the next couple minutes, but just wanted to say what's up to everybody, give my little PSA as always. Hope everybody's having an amazing Tuesday evening. Before we get started, just want to, as always, thank everybody for taking some time to listen to two dumbasses yap. I appreciate y'all because there's so much better things that you could be doing on your Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. The Florida Hockey Panthers play tonight. We're going to be watching that. I would be lying if I said that I didn't have the TV turned on with the game going on in the next couple minutes. But we're going to dial in. We're going to talk some draft stuff. I'm bringing in New Era Prep's very own esteemed NFL draft college football analyst, Ayden Apicella, who y'all are going to realize that I've known this kid for a long time, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but we're going to bring him on the screen now. Ayden, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, Christian?
I'm doing well, no complaints. My background might look a little familiar to you. For those that don't know, everybody, Ayden is actually my cousin. He is my younger cousin. Obviously grew up together, shared a love for sports. We've been talking ball literally since we could talk, and now we're both big sports media guys. I do decent work out at FAU. I do decent work on the Florida high school football scene. But now you're a student out at UNF. This is your sophomore year, right?
Yep.
So you're a sophomore at University of North Florida. Please stop getting old. Makes me feel old. And you're out here, and you've been killing the draft content for us so far. So let's talk about it. Like, I know the answers to all these questions, but where did your initial love for sports really start?
Really, I didn't love sports too much when I first was getting into it. My dad would take me to games, and I kind of just wanted to stay at home and play with Legos. But eventually, I fell in love with the analytical side of it and diving deep into the tape and managing teams, such like that. So that eventually kind of hooked me into sports, and I'll still watch a game, get hyped for a party, and love watching splash plays, but my creme of the season's always off season. Love watching the draft, combine, evaluating these players, and watching the teams grow.
Like you said, when you were a little kid, you unfortunately weren't big on going to games, and that's because you are a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. I'm so sorry you have had to put up with way too much hell throughout your life. You should receive financial compensation in some form or another for having to be a fan of that terrible team. But taking your talents, because it is a talent, into the analytical side of the game. You've always been a guy who you're a really smart young man. You love math. You're really good at math. And then you're always cooking up stuff in the off season. So what was it like to really start pairing the nerd stuff with sports?
It's really genuinely cool. Like growing up, I didn't have anything against sports or anything like that, but it wasn't something that I necessarily was as involved in. But being able to find kind of a passion with the things that often people overlook when it comes to managing a team, drafting players, signing free agents, it really helped me fall in love with it and seeing all the ins and outs of how an actual team comes into formation and eventually hopefully goes on to win a Super Bowl.
And then after getting to UNF, you were already starting to get really tied in with sports media out there. You're in multiple like extracurriculars and stuff like that, all around sports. And then you've even got a couple of internships stuff lined up. So how has that translation been from being a hobby into a possible professional career?
It really hasn't felt like it's been much of a hurdle. In middle school, started an Instagram just so that I could kind of keep track of my scouting reports and mock drafts, such like that. And then eventually it just spiraled into me having a passion and knowing I want to do it for a career. And since then, I've just been gun ho committed to being a NFL scout and hopefully being able to further my career through college and find new opportunities sooner or later.
In a perfect world, like if you could close your eyes right now and plan out post grad, this is what I want to do with my life, especially in sports. What is that? Like, what is your dreams? What are your aspirations?
Ideally, I'd like to graduate and find a job as a recruit or a scout somewhere, be able to evaluate talent and eventually move up through the ranks, hopefully get to the NFL sooner than later. And ultimately, the goal is to be a general manager, but there's only 32 of them, so
And then with a team like the Jaguars, who they just stomp their fans in the face every single year. You get so much hype around that team. Eh. And then any little hopes and dreams that are around, you just get kicked in the face. But you're a diehard Jaguars supporter, diehard avid Jaguars fan. Why do you still stick around with those guys? Because honestly, the Jaguars are like that bad ex-girlfriend that everybody has.
it's the logo.
The throwback logo, though, right?
I loved cheering for the Jags with my dad, cousins, everybody just
Don't rope
being
me into
off
Cousins with
the
this one.
field. We got cousin Bo,
That's true.
but I love cheering for the Jaguars. Have memories from my childhood. It's in my roots. It's in my veins. Duval for life. And ultimately, that probably is why I especially care about the off season because that is when the Jaguars' most highlight moments are. We had two back-to-back first overall picks, and it's pretty much been top 10 the rest of the way. So
Yes, it has definitely been a lot of top tens. I'm going to be completely honest. You know that of yeah, y'all consistently have a lot of top 10 picks. So now we've talked enough about you. No offense, we could talk about you for the whole stream, but everybody's here to hear about the scouting. So with the first pick in the 2025 NFL draft, everybody and their mom and their blind auntie knows the Tennessee Titans are selecting Cam Ward, quarterback Miami. You're a guy who you like Cam Ward's game. Obviously, in a little bit of a weaker QB class, he definitely stands out amongst everybody else. But you've always brought up to me throughout the season that there's a couple things that a lot of the general fans kind of overlook. So I do want you to bring that up of what do you see in Cam Ward's game?
I mean, ultimately, the biggest thing is he has all the arm talent. He can throw at different angles. And the biggest thing that stands out to me is his ball placement. It isn't just accurate, it isn't just within the vicinity of the receiver. It is pinpoint right exactly where you want it every single time. He can get it over the linebackers, he can get it around the corners. No matter what area of the field, his accuracy isn't just within the vicinity, it is exactly where you want it to be. And that is something that truly is hard to find in any quarterback prospect.
And then with a guy like Cam, who he was, I'm going to say it, he was a damn good college quarterback. He is a good, great college quarterback. How does he take that next step to go from a elite college passer to a good, great NFL quarterback? What is the next steps for him to build, in your opinion?
Ultimately, to me, it all has to do with in the pocket. I feel like he could work on his footwork a little bit, especially when pressure's in his face. He tends to throw off his back foot a little much. So I feel like ultimately just cleaning up some fundamentals and being able to work on that pocket presence and not hold on to the ball too much, work on ball security. He had, I think, 8 fumbles last year. So ultimately, in the pocket, that is where I think Cam Ward needs to improve at the next level, especially if he goes to a team with a poor O-line. The Titans definitely aren't going to be holding him up for 10 seconds every single snap. So as long as he can get the ball out a little quicker, work on his footwork in the pocket, I feel like that's exactly what he needs to get to that next level.
And then with the Titans, especially their O line, coming from Miami, who has the best people movers in college football last year, that offensive line was incredible. CC Noah, Will Carpenter, Jalen Rivers, so many good offensive linemen who hopefully will have long careers in the NFL. But then you look at the Titans. They got Peter Skoronsky, they got JC Latham, who are good young offensive linemen. But other than that, it's a crapshoot. So, do you think that there's going to be a little bit of a welcome to the NFL type moment with him where it's, all right, I unfortunately can't scramble around for a million years trying to make something out of nothing the way that he would do if the pocket collapsed, or if he has a clean pocket, he doesn't have a million years every throw to make his reads and make his progressions.
Yeah, I definitely think he could have some early struggles, especially that right side of the offensive line. I love Lloyd Cushenberry, their center, but really, they're definitely lacking on the right side. And since they're going to draft Cam Ward first, they'll need to look for a tackle in the second round. So really, it's probably going to be a little rough protection wise in Tennessee in Cam Ward's early years, especially with J.C. Latham and Skoronsky still developing into top tier talent. But especially combined with, I know Cam Ward said that Calvin Ridley is a top 5 receiver, but those guys aren't really getting immediate separation every single down. So, one, he's going to have to wait for his receivers to get open, and two, he's not going to have too much time to get that ball out.
And then that brings me to my next point, especially with the Titans, where I don't know what crack Cam was on when he said that Calvin Ridley, Traylon Burks, those are not top 4 receivers in this game. Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard are the furthest things from an elite running back, let alone top anything running backs. Like, they're good, don't get me wrong.
It's a
They're
good
damn
deal.
good. They're damn good. They're NFL starters. But in the grand scheme of the dudes that are in the league, they're nothing special. And Calvin Ridley is not the Calvin Ridley that was on the Falcons. Like, that is so obvious of this is not the same Calvin Ridley. So if you're the Titans, what do you prioritize more, especially early in this draft? Is it get him help on that line, or is it get him help in that receiving game? Because we all know the one meme of where it's like the Joe Burrow debate. You remember where it was like Penei Sewell, Jamar
Yeah.
Chase. So, what would you do if you're the GM for the Titans as far as because they got 8 picks, they got 7 outside of that number one, and they have a very early day too. Do you go skill position or do you beef up the trench babies?
Ultimately, it's going to depend on the board. I think that this offensive tackle class is a lot thinner than the receiver class. Ultimately, I feel like if a guy such as Josh Connerly is available in the second for them, I feel like they need to go offensive tackle. But if there's a chance that they can get someone like Luther Burden or Mika Buka in the second round, that would be a home run pick for Tennessee all the way.
And Luther Burden's a guy who has been linked with the Titans, especially on this show. You brought it up, and then Drew brought it up yesterday. Um, why is Luther Burden, who a couple months ago was a top 15 pick consensusly, all of a sudden now he's possibly fallen to the Titans early second round at 35? Like, what is going on with Luther Burden?
He had a drop off in production this past year. Some different situations possibly influenced that. I don't think he had the best offensive coordinator in the league. They weren't scheming him up like they should have with a premier receiver. And I think the quarterback play was somewhat subpar. But the biggest thing is many scouts reportedly have character concerns with Luther Burden. Some people throwing around that he's a diva. Personally, I haven't seen any cement proof that I should be concerned with his character, and I'm on the Luther Burden train. I think he has the most upside maybe of any receiver in this class. I think his 2023 season was the most impressive single year of any receiver in this year's class. I think that whoever nabs Luther Burden in this draft, especially if it's in the second round, they're going to have a home run pick.
Speaking of home run picks, it once again, everybody, their moms, their blind aunties, everybody knows Cam Ward. You are a Tennessee Titan. Get ready to be doing this in Nash Vegas. But now, at pick number 2, we got the options for the Cleveland Browns of Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. Both of those guys are damn good football players. Like, that's an understatement. They are very good football players. However, we know the Browns are going to brown, and they'll end up taking Jalen Milroe. Like, I don't know what the Browns are going to do. But statistically proven, if you give anybody in the city of Cleveland 2 correct answers, they're going to fill in C, and it's going to be the wrong answer. But with that being said, either which way, Abdul Carter, pairing him with Myles Garrett, or Travis Hunter, defensively you pair him with Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward, or offensively him and Jerry Jeudy. And is Amari Cooper still out there?
He's a free agent.
Okay, so him and Jerry Jeudy. Either which way, those are nice combos. So what do you think? What do you think Cleveland's going to do other than somehow screw up the pick?
I think they probably are going to go Travis Hunter. I think they'll see him as a quality receiver that they're missing, especially after trading Amari Cooper to Buffalo last year. So I think that is the route that they likely will go. But if I were them, I think Abdul Carter is one of the safest prospects in this class. And while some argue they already have Myles Garrett and he won't make much of a difference, I think having 2 elite edge rushers simply just makes that defense night and day. They already are very good, but that would make them elite. That is a defense paired with Carter that could carry them easily to the playoffs.
And then Travis Hunter goes out to Cleveland. He's cried, beat and moaned, whinged and whined, saying over the past week, I want to play both positions, which is nice. But I'm going to be honest, especially in a team like the Browns, there's better load management, and maybe they don't need him defensively. What do you value more with Travis Hunter? Do you think he would be, because we know he's a generational prospect, being able to do what he did last season and stay healthy with that load management was crazy. So, what do you think? What wows you more about Travis Hunter? His play at receiver or his play at corner?
I think his value at corner is definitely going to be higher valued, but ultimately the all the hype around Travis Hunter is he does play both positions. That is what you're drafting him for, is he is that generational guy that you're hoping could be one of a kind impact player. And while there are concerns of if he can handle the load at the NFL level and if he can take the hits or he'll have injury problems, but ultimately he's proven that he can do it at that level. There's no reason to doubt that he can do it at the next level because he is one of a kind. So
And then with Travis, people like to say ceilings and floors when talking about prospects. He's a guy who this is uncharted territory because basically everybody knew Charles Woodson was going to be a corner coming out of Michigan after a long time ago, well before you and me were even thought of. Um, but realistically speaking, especially offensively and so we could talk positionally and then group it together. What is Travis Hunter's floor and what's his ceiling, in your opinion?
his floor, I'd probably say, is a corner around Trevon Diggs level. I think it's still a very good player, and he's going to make some splashy plays, get interceptions. His playmaking ability, that's something they can't take away from him, and he will always have that. But there is definitely a ceiling where he has better coverage ability. I think he could be a premier corner in this league potentially, but along with being a star receiver potentially, he ultimately could be one of the biggest difference makers this league has ever seen.
And then so Ward and Hunter are off the board. All right, like we know that. Giants go in and presumably they'll take Abdul Carter. And Drew made a good point yesterday of having a front seven with Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Sexy Dexy, and Brian Burns. That's reminding a lot of people of like those championship caliber Giants defenses. How do you think that the Giants are going to operate that defense? Are they going to run a 4-3 or are they going to run like what type of defensive scheme do you think that they're going to run to just give every poor offense just absolute hell every Sunday?
Ultimately, it would be up to the defensive coordinator, but when you stack Brian Burns, Thibodeau, and if they were to get Abdul Carter, if you have all of them three together, ultimately I feel like you have to run a 3-4 if you want all of them on the field. Is you're not moving Thibodeau or someone else to defensive tackle, but they definitely have the ability to play 3-4 defensive end. So having three of those players plus Dexter Lawrence on the field at the same time would be definitely wrecking havoc on the defense. I mean, the offense.
And then with that defense, it reminds me of like that Eagles defense that we saw last year where they're just always rotating fresh elite defenders in those trenches to just wear down the opposing line. What would be the ceiling for this defense as far because the floor is they're the Giants and they'll be back to another top five pick. But what do you think that ceiling is for that defensive core alone?
Really, I think the defense's heights are as high as any if they add a guy like Abdul Carter. They already have two very qualified edge rushers in Thibodeau and Brian Burns. You have arguably the best defensive tackle in the entire league. But you have some solid linebackers. Okereke, you added Javon Holland in free agency to play safety. You added, what's his name from the Saints, the corner.
Lattimore?
No, Paulson Adebo. Sorry, I lost his name for a second, but he's a very good boundary coverage corner. So they've definitely upgraded the defense throughout the free agency so far. If you add a guy like Abdul Carter, that just takes it to the next level already.
And then that defense is going to carry this team. I don't want to be that guy or anything, but a Russell Wilson versus Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito QB battle is definitely a QB competition of all time, to say the least. Russell Wilson is a Hall of Famer. Yes. With that being said, we are not watching Seahawks Russell Wilson in the Big 25 anymore. Jameis Winston has obviously improved, and then Tommy Cutlets is just there. So this offense is pretty damn bad. I'm going to call it like it is. Like, I don't think Tyrone Tracy is anything special at running back. Like, I think he's a guy. He'll be like a James Robinson type guy where he'll have 2-3 good years. Solid fantasy football pickup. Good flex rotational piece. Great when your RB1 is on a bye week. But I don't think he's a guy who will be receiving a supermax contract, to say the least. And then outside of Malik Neighbors, they got no help in the receiving game. So what do you think the Giants are going to have to do the remainder of this draft in order to even the scales? I don't even know if that's the right words, but make up for the fact that right now their offense is dog.
I like Tyrone Tracy. He showed a lot of promise last year. He's a young player. There's nothing you can take that away from him. He was great. So I think that's definitely a spot that they should be at least happy with as of now. If he does regress, then they can address that later. But as of now, he was a 1,000-yard rusher as a rookie. So that running back spot definitely should be pretty solid as of now. But I definitely think they need to add a receiver. They could target somebody round 2, round 3, maybe trade up for somebody. But there's definitely some pretty good depth, especially in round 2, that they could go after and expect to start day 1 opposite of Neighbors. And I also think they probably should try to go after some quarterback in round 2. Maybe it's Milroe. Maybe if Dart falls, that would be a dream for them. Maybe they even tried trading up for Shadur Sanders if he starts slipping a little bit in the first. I think there's a lot of routes they have to go about it. But ultimately, I feel like if they play this draft correctly and get a quarterback, get a good weapon, and make a home run pick early in the draft, I think this team could have a lot quicker turnaround than most people expect.
And then with this draft, obviously we have 3 home run picks back to back to back. Those are all 3 guys of where, regardless of who you take at 1, 2, and 3, any combination, your team is coming away with a home run. Like if Cam Ward doesn't go 1 and Abdul Carter goes to the Titans, that's still a great pickup for the Titans. Nobody's going to bat an eye. I mean, there will probably be a bunch of batted eyes, but so now you got those 3 gimmies out of the way. What else does this draft class offer? What are the strengths of this class in your eyes? And what are some things that you might want to stay away from? Like, obviously, if you need a certain position, you're going to take it. But what are some things that you like? What are some things that you don't like?
I mean, I think that the running back class is obviously spectacular. I think that the tight end class has some really good depth going into day 2. I think the receiver class has a lot of very strong names that I'd be comfortable starting after drafting them in round 2, 3, maybe even 4. I think that there are a lot of really good defensive tackles that you can find day 2, 3, and there's probably going to be 4 guys that go round 1. The only positions that I am somewhat wary of is I feel like tackle falls off quite a bit after the top 6, 7 guys. I feel like you have 4 to 5 players that are probably first round locks with Will Campbell, Membo, Banks, Josh Simmons, and Josh Connerly. But after that, I like Ursery out of Minnesota and I like Ozzie Trapilo. But after that, there really isn't many offensive tackles that I think are built for that position that I trust starting early on.
And then, like I said yesterday on the show with Drew, I gave y'all boys 10 guys. Who are the 10 guys you are most comfortable about? So obviously, let y'all break down film. Basically, you already knew who you wanted to talk about. We are not double dipping at all. We are bringing up one person that we talked about yesterday. So let's just get him out of the way now, and that's the the head of the generational running back class of Ashton Genty, or obviously he's deserving of being spoken about by so many different people. So Ashton Genty is a guy who statistically had one of the best running back seasons in college football history. A lot of people believe that he should have won the Heisman. I'm fine with whoever would have won it. Cam Ward was my vote. But and yes, I actually did have a vote on the Heisman list, so I thought that was pretty cool. Just want to bring that up. So you're welcome, world. So Genty is a guy who is literally just explosive, and it's not. Oh, he was at Boise State beating up on G5s. He tore up Oregon. He tore up Penn State. Like the fact of he was able to get yards against Penn State's defense against Abdul Carter when his offensive line was not ready for that. I'm gonna call it like it is. So he did well against 2 top 7 teams in this league. So what do you like about Genty's game? And there are so many different places that he could go and contribute. Where are some landing spots that you would like for Ashton Genty and you'd feel comfortable about his success early?
Ultimately, I don't really see Gene T falling past number 6. I think that the Patriots really should consider taking him at number 4, but they do definitely need offensive line help. It's been linked to the Jaguars that they might be interested in Gene T, and while they have Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, that definitely could be a route that would make sense, and he definitely would be able to help the offense to an extreme point that may be best for Trevor Lawrence's development, maybe finally getting him over that hump. And ultimately, I think if he's there at 6 for the Raiders, I don't see them passing on him. I think that Pete Carroll and Tom Brady now in the building will highly value just getting a safe blue chip prospect that they know will be a guy that he will win you games. Pete Carroll values running backs, and this is the best one possible in this draft class and maybe of this past decade.
And then with Genty, like I said, I'll talk about the Jaguars because you are a Jaguars guy. The Jags are in need of a legitimately good running back. Y'all have not had one since Leonard Fournette. And once again, the 2 years of Leonard Fournette were awesome. And before that, y'all needed a good running back since Maurice Jones-Drew. I think I'm pretty spot on with that, despite not watching a lot of Jaguars football, because I actually enjoy my mental health, so I don't watch Jaguars football. Once again, they're the terrible ex-girlfriend that you stay the hell away from. But if Genty lands in Jacksonville, pick 5, that's one that a lot of people, all the old Twitter heads are going to be like, you shouldn't take a running back that early. Running backs, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sick of hearing that. I think that is a great move. What could Ashton Genty bring to that Jaguars offense? Oh, revamped for the millionth time since Trevor Lawrence has gotten there offense, where it's him, Trevor, Genty in the backfield, and then a plethora of solid receivers, Brian Thomas Jr. And friends. So, what do you like out of that offense?
Ultimately, I feel like if you bring in Gene T, I actually aren't a fan of going running back round one or very early. I think it's a position that you can get a great guy and starter caliber player in rounds 2, 3, but Gene T isn't just another player. You're drafting Gene T and you're hoping that he is going to come in and immediately take over the league. And I'm pretty confident that he will have that ability extremely early on in his career. He isn't a guy that's just going to be a part of your offense and a good running back you can hand the ball off to. He's a guy you can game plan completely around. Trevor Lawrence right now, he is the main focus of that offense. If you bring in Gene T, that takes off a tremendous amount of pressure off of Trevor Lawrence. Right now, ETN and Tank Bigsby, they're good guys that can take on a load, but
Pause.
ultimately, you get a guy like Gene T, that is who offenses are going to be terrified of for the next 8 years. He very well may be one of the best running backs the league's ever seen.
Well, with that being said, the Jaguars will probably take Mason Graham, and then later in the draft, they'll or UDFA they'll pick up Trevor Etienne. So that way, Travis Etienne and Trevor Etienne can sit the bench together and watch Tank Bigsby actually be a good running back. Once again, avid ball knower Christian, I have said from day one, Travis Etienne is not a good running back and would not pan out in the NFL. Give me my flowers. I love being always right. So now obviously we have our little bit of double dipping with Ash and Genty. So let's talk about a couple new guys. A guy that you love to talk about. For a year and a half, I have heard from you the praises of this dude. It's time to tell the people what you like about Jackson Dart.
Oh, man.
Outside of their rock and flow.
You know, Dart is just somebody that he is a leader among men. And oftentimes you'll hear anybody just say, oh, yeah, he's a leader in the locker room because he's a quarterback. But Jackson Dart is one of the only players that I've had the privilege of being able to study and hear about and question. And he goes above and beyond at every single level. After the first loss this past season, he held a player-led meeting. Players showed up for him, not a mandatory meeting. Just every single Ole Miss player rallied to hear what he had to say after a loss. And he was the person that was beating himself up over just one loss.
First off, for the mob of FAU fans that are swarming to the show after leaving the 14-1 shellacking versus UCF early, welcome. Obviously, I'm well aware that dollar dogs and $3 beers cannot make up for the fact of we are currently getting our asses handed to us. So, appreciate you guys for tuning in. I've seen the viewer count skyrocket in the past 10 minutes, and I know exactly where all of you guys are coming from. But Jackson Dart, he's a guy who he's a solid athlete. Like he's a pretty good athlete.
He's a great athlete.
He's a great athlete. I'll give it to you. That white boy hurdles people. He's a damn good athlete. You know how hard it is for a Caucasian fellow such as myself to be able to hurdle somebody. I'll give you an SEC defender. Yeah, he's an elite athlete. But Jackson Dart, the athleticism's there. The arm talent is there. Everybody's realistically their biggest knock, at least mine, is just sometimes that decision making just goes in one ear out the other, and all of a sudden it's just like I'm playing. You've played me in Madden, you know that's not good, and it's a pick party. You saw The last 2 minutes of that Florida game, he threw 3 picks. Like, the fact that he was able to get back on the field after the first pick is kind of an issue, Florida. But that's a game that they should have murdered Florida. Florida was not supposed to win that game, and then they come back and win it. But there was multiple occasions of where Ole Miss losses were on Jackson Dart. So, what is your thoughts on that?
Ultimately, I feel like every single time that somebody questions Jackson Dart's decision making, they always go to that Florida game, which, yes, he had pretty terrible throws back to back to back against Florida in a big moment. But one thing that nobody likes to mention is that just a couple plays before that, Jackson Dart went down with injury and decided to play through it in that Florida matchup. And other than that Florida game, he has one of the lowest turnover worthy play percentages in all of college football. He ultimately, outside of that game, barely had any interceptions. I believe he had 4 outside of that Florida matchup, and ultimately had one of the best touchdown to turnover ratios in all of football. I think that outside of that slight inconvenience where he had an injury just slightly before that, he ultimately has proven that he can take care of the ball and he won't turn it over, and he puts it right where his receiver needs it to be the only person to make a play on it.
And then he's a guy who some draft boards have him going in the top 15. Some have him as a late first. Some people have him going mid day 2. There is a big spread of discrepancy of where Jackson Dart can end up. There are so many variables. What do you think is his best case scenario for this draft, and where's like his all right, now I'm starting to get worried?
Ultimately, I think the best case scenario for him to land could potentially be with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel like that is a dream situation where he'd have DK Metcalf and George Pickens. He has a trustworthy head coach in Mike Tomlin, and they are attempting to build up their offensive line. Ultimately, I feel like, and especially him having a stellar defense in Pittsburgh, ultimately they've been lacking a star franchise quarterback, and I feel like Jackson Dart landing in Pittsburgh could just be that.
And then, all right, say both of these guys are available with that Pittsburgh pick. You're the GM of the Steelers. Jackson Dart or Shador Sanders? Who are you taking?
Personally, I have Jackson Dart as my quarterback too. I like Shador. I'm a fan of Shador, and I'd like to see him thrive, but ultimately, Shador, he doesn't have the strongest arm in the class. He isn't that athletic of a scrambler. He ultimately just doesn't have much traits that you look for to develop and sling up upside wise. I think that Jackson Dart has a cannon of an arm. You can see him throw off his back foot, rifle it downfield 50 yards, and surgically place it along the sideline. He makes every single throw. He can make plays with his legs. He has great improvisation ability. I think that Dart has all the tools you look for. You just need to clean up some slight accuracy issues, maybe some fundamentals, but I think Jackson Dart has every tool you could possibly want in a franchise quarterback.
Sorry, I'm just giving it a couple seconds because I know I'm going to be clipping that and throwing it on social media. I think if there's a quote that's been said today that could blow up, that's the one, ladies and gentlemen. Just preparing for the future, get the impressions ready, and there's a lot of Colorado people that follow me. They would not like that. But that's why you're the analyst, and it's more importantly, we are Americans, and we can say what we want.
I like Shador. I think he's.
I was about to say you saved your ass.
I like Shador. I think he's the most NFL ready quarterback of this class, but Dart is just. I think he has the most upside as comparatively to him.
More importantly, you prefaced everything before you got into it. I like Shador. I talk about a couple of his positives, but now I'm gonna not rip him. So I do like that because
It's not that I'm low on Shador. I
I gotta
just
say you
don't
can't
think
get quote tweeted by Barstool or by Shador. Like, watch this, like blah 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 blah. Like, but all right, moving on. Sorry, I'm just licking my chops knowing that my phone is gonna be blowing up tonight. Um, we spoke about the fact that this is a generational running back class, like top to bottom and bottom to top. There are so many good guys. A guy who, if Ashton Genty wasn't in this draft class, or if Ashton Genty didn't have the season, the historic season that he had, this dude has been flying under the radar, and that's Amari Hampton out of UNC. He's a guy I personally really like him. I like his contact balance. I like his whole game. He's a guy who, same thing. He could possibly be around one guy. So what do you see out of UNC's Amari Hampton?
I think Hampton's great. I think he, in most draft classes, would have been the running back one off the board. It just so happens that he's stuck behind one of the greatest college football seasons ever that Ashton Jeanty had. I think that Hampton easily could go top 10. I think that if he's sitting there at the Bears pick, they have a very strong chance at picking him.
So you think his upside is top 10 pick?
I definitely think he could go around that range. I don't necessarily see him landing with any of the teams before the Bears pick, just because I don't think running back is of value to them compared to other positions. But if there was some team that maybe wanted to trade up, like the Broncos or somebody else, I think he absolutely could go earlier than that. But prime position, as long as they don't go get Jeanty, I think Bears at 10 is a very strong spot for Hampton.
And then he's another dude of, if it's not the Bears at 10, where in round 1 do you think he could end up? Where, God forbid, he falls out of round 1, where what are some other moves that you could realistically, once again, see it being made, and then it's all right, this is a solid spot and it's not just somebody taking best player available?
Yeah. I definitely don't see him falling out of round 1, but I think that the Cowboys absolutely would take him if he's there. I think that going down the draft board a little bit, Broncos, no chance he makes it past them. If Denver has a chance to get Hampton down there at 20, there's no chance Denver is passing up on a running back of that quality.
Boom. There. I like it. Once again, I think he is. I think he's RB 1.5. Like, like, like saying Omari Hampton is RB2 feels blasphemous to me.
Yeah.
But now we have almost like that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery of college football, and that's Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Junkins. Those guys, like throughout the draft process, you can't talk about one without talking about the other. So we're gonna do the same thing. Travion Henderson is a guy who, once again, is very easily a first-round back. Questionable with Junkins. What is your analysis on those guys? And same thing, where do you think they end up?
Ultimately, I think Travion Henderson could be and probably should be a first-round running back. He just has unique explosiveness. He has insane big playability. The only thing that I could see keeping him out of the first round potentially is his injury history. But ultimately, I feel like just the explosiveness that he offers, some teams going to take a chance on in the first round. I think that there's a chance that Washington could go after a bigger running back. I think that a team even like if the Broncos don't get Hampton or Jeanty, I think that he could even go as early as 20 to Denver. But if he does manage to fall past the first round, I think that the Browns losing Nick Chubb, they absolutely could be in the market at 33 for a guy like Travion Henderson. I could see him landing with the Raiders if they don't get G&T. I could see him going to the Patriots at 6. 38. Sixth pick of the second round, but
I was about to say he's not a top 4 pick. I know that.
so I think absolutely at 38 the Patriots could go after a guy like Travion Henderson. There's plenty of spots that he can land up, but I don't see him sliding too much out of the second round.
And then what about Judkins? By the way,
Judkins,
Quinshawn Judkins is a guy fraudulent. I have still yet to see him hit a spin move. It's the most cracked move in college football 25. I have still yet to see it. And I even asked him about it and he just laughed and walked away. But
yeah, Judkins is a bruising running back. He has great contact balance and ultimately is fantastic short yardage, red zones. He has great vision. I think that he definitely could be a starting running back for a team, but I do think he lacks the same explosiveness that the previous three that we talked about may have. I think that Judkins would probably be more of a mid-round pick in the second. I could see him landing again. Denver, I think, is in the market. I could see him potentially landing somewhere like with the Chargers in the second round around pick 23, 55. There definitely are a few teams that could be looking at running back in the second round, and he even could go earlier than that. I could see him going to maybe the Saints at 40, one of the Bears, 2 second rounders. If the Cowboys don't pick up a running back, he could be a great option at 44. So there's definitely a lot of teams that are in the market for a running back, and Judkins could pretty much fit any scheme, I think.
so moving on to the receiver room. Everybody loves to talk about how good of a receiver class this is. And I completely agree. We know the guys, Tataroa McMillan, Luther Burden, Xavier Restrepo. Like, we know those are just elite wide receivers. There's a couple dudes that are flying under the radar that you and me, we agreed, deserve to get a little bit of spotlight. So let's talk about them Iowa State Cyclone boys, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins. Those are both guys who I was really impressed with in Indy. I thought they both had very, very strong showings testing. Jalen Noel's a guy who I fell in love with his tape while scouting for the Pop Tarts Bowl. When Iowa State would go on to beat Miami in the worst football game of all time. But that's neither here nor there. Not going to get mad, I promise. But yeah, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, those are two really elite guys. So I want to talk about Noel first. What is just sold you on this dude?
Ultimately, Noel, just watching him, he is explosive. He has elite release coming off the line. He is active with his footwork. He has some nasty route running. He will leave you in the dust. And he's a slot receiver, but he can play outside, but he has all the intermediate short routes that you look for, but he will blaze right past you, and he has fantastic ball tracking ability deep. He overall, I think, is a threat at all levels of the field. He is an extremely complete slot receiver prospect that I think could definitely start and make a huge impact right away.
And then now on the flip side, Higgins, because obviously those are two dudes that have completely different play styles. They both contribute in their own way to Iowa State's success. With them being, they're a damn good football team. Iowa State was a damn good football team last year. Once again, not going to get pissed about that bowl game. But what about Jaden Higgins? What do we like about him?
Yeah, he has an incredible physical profile. He is very fast for his size, 6'4", 215. He has incredible body control. He understands how to get leverage easily. His positioning is just incredible in and out of the game. I think he can be a threat at all levels of the field. He ultimately reminds me a lot of Drake London. I think that he is a guy that I personally have a second round grade on, but I could easily see a team wanting to go get him in the first round and think they can develop him into a superstar player.
And then what do you think, like, as far as I don't want to be repetitive and keep going ceiling, floor, or anything like that. But like, what do you think if a team, because at this point we kind of don't really know where they're going to land. Like it's kind of all over, especially day two, depending on how the draft board flows. But where do you project those dudes if they go to a team who can maximize the most out of their potential and doesn't have a duck of a quarterback throwing, or they get buried on a depth chart? What do you think those guys' full potential could be?
I think ultimately Jalen Noel has the upside. He could be one of the best slot receivers in this league if they does reach his potential. I think that he already is very complete, but ultimately just getting the right production and a right system that'll value him would be huge. I think that if he landed somewhere like potentially the Patriots, Jalen Noel, that could potentially be a home run fit for him as Drake London's immediate wide receiver one, and you could potentially go nuclear immediately as a rookie. And when it comes to Jaden Higgins, I think he definitely could land somewhere that needs an steady outside receiver they can rely on and try to maximize the potential out of. I think that if you were to go somewhere potentially to Dallas in the second round, having him as the wide receiver two outside with CD in the slot, that ultimately could take a lot of pressure off of a young receiver like that and leave him open to tons of targets and tons of looks with a reliable and healthy quarterback in Dak.
I just don't like the idea of the Cowboys upgrading at all. Everybody knows the Cowboys are just the laughing stock of this league, so we're going to pretend that they absolutely whiffed this draft as always. Um, but then another guy, and this is I don't want to say mid major because end of the day he's Pac 12, Pac 2. He's a Pac 2 guy where they do fall under the radar, even though he's at Washington State. Like he's still a good receiver, but he's getting a little overshadowed in this draft class. That's Kyle Williams. What was same thing? What was like your biggest selling point when you were watching and breaking down that dude's tape?
Yeah, the biggest thing with Kyle Williams is his release. Right off the line, he immediately gets separation. He has some quick twitchiness to him. He has burst. He just instantly gets separation the second the ball is snapped. It's like you're watching him just, it's like magnets repelling from each other. The second the play starts, he already has two steps on the defensive back. He's a guy that I personally have as my wide receiver 6. I think he's potentially could be a first round pick, but I think he'll probably go early in the second. And he ultimately, I think, could be a wide receiver 1 for an offense. I think that if I'm the Titans, maybe the Jaguars, Raiders in the second round, Patriots even, and I think I need a wide receiver 1 and he's there, I absolutely wouldn't shy away from drafting a guy like Kyle Williams and letting him try to work up to be the wide receiver 1 pretty early in my offense.
Magnets repelling is a good little science analogy. That's something I haven't heard in years. Once again, for everybody, he's the nerd in the family, and I'm the furthest thing from it. We're gonna be completely honest. We both know. Like he was he's the brains, and I'm the damn good looks, and y'all know that. But now we're gonna talk about Florida boy. This is a guy I love watching. I love watching him play football. I've gotten the pleasure of watching this dude play football live, in person, in front of me multiple times. I think this kid's a game wrecker. I think his game is just untapped. We don't know what this dude's ceiling is, and that's Mason Taylor, tight end out of LSU. He's a guy who very strong, tight end class. I think he's getting overlooked. But what do we like out of Mason Taylor's game?
Dude, I am a huge fan of Mason Taylor. He has great concentration. He'll fight for yards. He has fantastic athleticism. He is extremely fluid as a route runner, and he's a pretty dang good blocker, considering how good of a receiving tight end he is. I am absolutely a huge fan of Mason Taylor, and he definitely does get overlooked a little bit with guys like Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren at the top. But Mason Taylor, I think he absolutely is an early second round talent and potentially could even be a first round pick back in there.
And then with Taylor, there's a lot of backstory with him in South Florida. Obviously, his pops is Jason Taylor. We know he's pretty good at football. Growing up in Broward County, going to St. Thomas Aquinas, being in the long legacy of the Roger Harriet tree of just dudes that have come out of Aquinas and the Raider way. What do you think about him possibly landing in Miami? Like, obviously, I don't think tight end is a priority for the Dolphins in this draft. But if we had to get one, him, Elijah Arroyo, I'm fine with either one of those gentlemen. So what do you think out of those?
I mean, if I was the Dolphins, I definitely wouldn't be looking at tight end in rounds 2 or 3. But uh, if you were to land a guy like Mason Taylor, potentially at pick, uh, what is it, 48 the Dolphins have in the second? Yeah,
Yeah,
48. I think that ultimately would be great value. I think that having him under Johnny Smith would be a crazy tight end combo that you could run great tight end sets in. It definitely would help out Devon A-Chain in the run game, being able to disguise different plays like that. Mike McDaniels would probably fall in love with something like that, but ultimately, Mason Taylor, I think, has stupid high upside at tight end, and I think he will be a very good NFL player at the next level.
I completely agree. I think, like I said, I think the sky's the limit for this kid. And I've said it since his true freshman season. Kid is an absolute animal. Um, but obviously, I'm a Dolphins supporter. Fan isn't the right word because at this point we're media. Don't want to say fan and myself in the same sentence. But I grew up supporting the Dolphins. You grew up supporting Jacksonville. Both of these teams have some glaring needs for this draft. Yours more than mine, because y'all are a crapshoot. But so let's start at pick number 5 for the Jags, and let's move our way down. What do you think the Jags should do with their first round pick? And then what are some priority positions / players that you would be happy them coming away with as the weekend progresses to where it would ultimately be like, all right, I'm coming away with smiles.
I mean, assuming that Carter and Travis Hunter are obviously gone, I think there's definitely a few routes Jacksonville could go that I'd be happy with. My experience as a fan is never get hooked up on one player. I think having a nice list of players that you'd be happy with is beneficial, but I think that I'd love Mason Graham getting put in the middle of that defense, Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, putting in what I think is an elite defensive tackle prospect. I think Mason Graham would make Jacksonville's defense extremely better. They definitely need help in the run defense. Ultimately, he would be a home run pick. I'd also be happy with Jeanty, as I mentioned before. It isn't necessarily what I view as the biggest need in Jacksonville, but Jeanty isn't just a running back. He isn't just a first-round running back either. I think that he's the best of this past decade. I think that you are getting a guy who will eventually be one of, if not the best in the league at his position. I think that the value he brings as a superstar, not just a running back, is immeasurable compared to other players at the position. But I'd also be happy going O-line. Will Campbell would be a stud. Armand Membo. maybe even Will Johnson. There's definitely a few players that I'd be happy with.
He's our guy. He's our guy. Stay away from Will Johnson. Y'all don't want him. And then moving into day 2 and day 3. So say I think the betting odds have Mason Graham. So we'll go and be little degenerate gamblers. Mason Graham, you are a Jacksonville Jaguar. Boom. You got that run help, the run stopping help that this defense needs. Where does Jacksonville go from here? What's the next steps?
To me, after you fill in that defensive tackle spot, there's 3 needs that they could go after. They had the worst ranked pass defense in the league last year, so I think they absolutely could use another corner. I think that they could go safety if a great one's available, but after losing Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, I don't necessarily think they need tight end. I like Brendan Strange to develop as a starter, but wide receiver absolutely could be a need. And then they do have some okay offensive linemen under contract, but I definitely think they could upgrade at left tackle potentially.
So what are some names that Goodell says that name and you're like, all right, there we go. Like, I want to hear some corners. I want to hear some. Kirk was primarily a slot guy. I want to hear some slot guys, and I want to hear some. I want to hear some fat boys. Give me some names.
Yeah, ultimately, the dream pick for me in the second round would be Luther Burden. He's been sliding down draft boards. People are worried about the drop-off in productions last year. They're worried about some character concerns, but ultimately, I'm happy with a diva receiver. I'd like him to have a little juice, a little fight in him. And I think that Luther Burden had the best single season of any receiver in this entire class. I think that him out of the slot has some of the most explosive ability of any player I've ever watched. So Luther Burden at 38, I think, would be a home run pick for Jacksonville.
Corners?
At corner, there's definitely a few that I would be very happy with. I think that if Trey Amos slid a little bit, pairing him outside with Tyson Campbell could be a fantastic addition. Maxwell Hairston, fastest 40 in the entire class. I think he has extremely high upside for the position. I'd be happy with either Benjamin Morrison or Siobhan Revel if they slide a little bit due to their injuries this past year. So there definitely are a few options at corner that Jacksonville could look to add.
And then now for me, as a fan of the Miami Football Dolphins, they don't treat me right either. They cheat on me a little bit, especially with whatever the heck is going on with this Jalen Ramsey stuff and Tyreek Hill all of a sudden literally dangling his child off of a penthouse 6 hours ago. Like, both of these, Tyreek Hill needs to get out of Miami. And unfortunately, Tyreek Hill is going that Jimmy Butler route of I'm just going to kill any trade leverage that you can possibly get from me. But at least Jimmy Butler wasn't playing Grand Theft Auto. Like, I have no words about Tyreek Hill, no positive words. I am absolutely disgusted, and I do not want that dude to ever wear this logo on his chest and on his head again. So with that being said, there is a better chance of a Jalen Ramsey draft day trade going down than a Tyreek Hill. And I am fully expecting it. So Ramsey goes, and then obviously you're losing your best corner. You'll probably gain, if I had to do the trade, I'd say they get a day 2 this year, maybe a day 2, day 3 next year, and then insert some rotational piece player. Like, I don't think they're going to get a crazy haul for a DB on the wrong side of 30. So now with Miami, what is more important? Fixing a already bad secondary that now loses Jalen Ramsey, or fixing the offensive line, getting Liam Eichenberg's trash ass off the field, and keeping Tua healthy before Thanksgiving break? Like, what is the bigger priority in your mind? Because I trust your opinion and analysis a lot more than I do, honestly, Chris Greer. But that's
Miami definitely needs to upgrade their secondary. However, I think that especially with Tua and his concussion history, solidifying that offensive line on especially after losing Ron Armstead, that has to be their number one priority. And especially, I think that this offensive tackle class drops off after the first round. I think that they have to go get a left tackle at pick 13.
that's such not a sexy pick. Like I'm all for. Listen, Tua goes down, and I said this on the show yesterday for anybody who is either rewatching, like, thank you for tuning in once again, or it's your first time. Appreciate you coming on. If Tua goes down, this is probably it. I'm going to be honest. I wanted Tua to retire this offseason. I was a firm believer on that after that hit against Buffalo. I publicly said that this needs to be it for Tua. He has a family now. He has 2 daughters. He has so many things that are bigger than football going for him in this life. So I'm still on the belief of if he gets hit one more time, it's not going to be his decision on what happens. So that being said, like, where am I going with this? Like, keeping Tua healthy is a priority because end of the day, if Tua's down, Zach Wilson is our only other rostered quarterback, and sim to next draft with the first pick in the 2026 NFL draft, the Miami Dolphins select Lenora Sellers.
Maybe he has a Sam Darnold resurgence.
That's when I reach behind me and grab that Jameson. That's what I do. But so if Miami goes Fat Boys in round one, do they try to get back into round one and snag a corner? Because if Will Johnson falls from 13, he's another guy where he could start to. I don't want to say plummet. I would never say that about somebody's stock, but his draft stock might be going a little lower than a lot of people think. So, if you're Miami, do you try to slide back up into round one to possibly take a skill position on defense?
I think that they definitely could try trading back up for a corner, but ultimately, I feel like for defensive backs, it wouldn't be worth the value that they'd have to pay to move up from pick 48, or especially if they wanted to hold on to that second round pick. I think that there are a lot of good round two corner prospects in this class, though, that Miami could 100% be comfortable drafting and starting right away. I think that there's guys such as Chavon Revel, Benjamin Morrison. They've been first round talents all the way, but they dealt with injuries, so they absolutely could slide to pick 48 for Miami. I think Trey Amos is a first round talent on my board, but if he starts sliding just because of the depth at the top of this corner class, I think he would be a home run selection that I 100% would trust to start. Maxwell Hairston, some people don't trust as much as a corner and think it's more upside. If he starts to slide a bit, he, I think, has as high of upside as any other corner in the class with his elite speed, which I highly value for the position. So there are plenty of corners I trust to go out and get at pick 48. Meanwhile, offensive tackle and offensive line, there's a pretty big drop off in my eyes after the first round.
And then I'll give you another one. Miami's edge rusher room is interesting. Because on paper, you think, oh, damn, Miami's got Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips. Those are 3 stud edge rushers. And Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are both coming back from serious injuries. Consistently, their seasons get ended early. Should Miami try to snag a edge rusher and just to kind of fill out depth. Hopefully, we never have to use him. Hopefully, he's just a rotational guy. But what value do you see in an edge rusher in Miami for this draft?
I absolutely think they could go after an edge rusher. As always, the best ability is availability. If Chubb and Phillips can't consistently stay healthy, then ultimately they aren't there when it counts. So I think they absolutely could go edge rusher, but at that point with that position, I feel like it would be more best player available for Miami if they were to go that position, unless you're talking about round 3, 4, 5, maybe. But if they were to go an edge rusher in the first or second, I feel like it definitely would have to be somebody who slid down their board quite a bit.
And then my last question about your analytics on people, because basically I have all the draft board related stuff, but I want to get near brand a little bit. What matters more to you? A guy who I don't want to say peaked, but has that elite production coming out of college. A guy who tested well at the combine, tested well at his pro day, or a guy like what matters more, production or projection? A guy who has been balling out or a guy who maybe hasn't been playing his best football? Case in point, James Pierce, who there's a lot of things going on with him right now that could possibly alter his draft stock, but say all of that is out the window. James Pierce was a damn good edge rusher for Tennessee 2 years ago. So him versus a guy like Shamar Stewart, who had an amazing combine with not crazy stats.
In that specific case, I do have James Pierce over Shamar Stewart, but I have James Pierce as my edge 2 and Stewart as my edge 3. So ultimately, I definitely do weigh in projection as the biggest part of it. It isn't just combine or athletic numbers, but looking at snaps, maybe they're getting more pressures but aren't wrapping up the quarterback. Maybe they're causing more throwaways. Maybe they're just opening up more things for the defense. Maybe they have a wider pass rush tool belt than most other edge prospects in the class. There's a lot of different things that I micro-analyze for every single player and break down and watch multiple times over and over. And ultimately, it's a combination of the things. James Pierce, I think, has incredible athleticism. He has sky-high upside. He ultimately is just incredible. He is 6'5", 245, and runs a 4.47. So he is no slouch of an athlete himself, plus having the production at Tennessee. So if the character concerns don't end up being as much of a problem as some people make it out to be, then I think he easily will be an elite prospect out of this class. Shamar Stewart is full projection. He pretty much had no production at Texas A&M. He only had 1.5 sacks each of his 3 years. He tested incredibly as an athlete, though, and he does put up some nice things on tape that I like to see. I think that he did extremely well setting the edge. He shows a great blend of power and speed. He has incredible flexibility for his size. He really makes some jaw-dropping plays, but ultimately there is that concern of he doesn't have the same production as some other players had, and he does need to develop some technical traits such as widening his pass rush tool belt, but ultimately his athleticism and what I've seen on tape as well as what the numbers show, I think that he has sky high upside in this draft class.
And then piggybacking onto that, there are guys who that this dude is a baller. Like, year in and year out, this dude is a production machine who maybe there's a certain thing that they didn't test well in. And I think I know who I'm talking about. and that's Xavier Restrepo. Easily the most reliable wide receiver in this draft. Xavier Restrepo was that dude for 4 years at Miami. Incredible wide receiver. He single-handedly won games, especially this year. You look at the Virginia Tech game, you look at the Cal game. That dude is an animal. With that being said, that 40 was questionable at the pro day. Like, I was standing 5 feet away, and I was like, oh, crap. But, however, it comes out that he apparently pulled his hamstring. I'm not an excuses guy. I don't want to hear it. For a guy who is just an absolute production machine, is there little alarms or red flags that that go off when you see something kind of minuscule like that, when all the tape is pointing to this dude's a baller and maybe his game speed's a little bit better than a tested 40? Or like, is that something that you listen to, or are you like me and you ignore red flags? Ladies, hit me up.
There's definitely alarms that went off in my head when I saw the 40 time and I saw his testing, but ultimately he still is a decently high receiver on my board, and he was uber productive. He had Cam Ward at his quarterback, so maybe that might have helped him out a little bit. But
he was a baller with Tyler Van Dyke. Don't get it twisted. He was a baller with Tyler Van Dyke and Emory Williams and Ja'Cory Brown throwing him footballs.
Yeah, but ultimately the speed, while there is a manageable concern with it, he gets open consistently. He is extremely dependable. He's a trustworthy slot option that any team could use in this draft class. So I absolutely think he has his place in the NFL, and I think that a team will be thrilled to add him and get him in that building.
So now, basically all the interview questions are done. You absolutely killed it, dude. My last thing I do want to ask that I always ask, but I'm going to ask you something different first. What is your coverage plans, like, as far as draft weekend goes? Like, what are you planning to be putting out that way? Because obviously a lot of that stuff's going to go to yours truly. Appreciate you once again for always contributing with New Era. So what are some things that we could start to sprinkle in to get the viewers excited for Ayden's draft coverage? What do you got in mind?
Yeah, obviously I'm getting out all the positional rankings, and I'm going to get out some mock drafts and big boards tomorrow and before the draft. But once the draft starts, I'm going to be doing grades for every single pick. Probably will do an article on like the entire first round, and I'll do best available players after first day of the draft. And then I'll grade every pick day 2 and 3, do best available UDFAs, best available after day 2. And then ultimately, when the entire draft's wrapped up, I will do some articles grading every single team's individual draft class. And I'll go over every single pick, how I like the fit, how I like the value, every single little detail. And that'll be my bread and butter after the draft's finally over.
Boom. Dude, that's going to be incredible coverage. I hope everybody's excited for that because I'm fired up. Obviously, being the editor and guy kind of running the social media and the website stuff, I'm greatly looking forward to all that. For everybody, my role, round 1, I'm going to be cranking out articles every selection. We're going to be trying to get them SOBs out every 10 minutes. We'll see how that goes. As far as basically everything you got to know, Cam Ward going number 1 to the Titans. Little brief thing about Cam, accolades and awards, Heisman finalist, My Glorious King, you name it. And then basically how he can fit into a team's scheme fit. That's what I'm going to be doing. So that on top of what Ayden's doing, and then Cass is going to be on site for the draft. Once again, I'm sick as a dog right now. The fact that I've done 3 hours worth of streaming in 2 days is pretty impressive when I literally have 105 fever. Y'all didn't even know that, but
I didn't.
so yeah, I've just been like, I unfortunately will not be in Green Bay. Cass is going to kill it. She's on a flight right now. stay tuned for everything she's going to do. We're going to be cranking out some content. I got my little iPad kids, the graphic designers. They're going to be cranking out some graphics. They're having a great time. They're taking off of your big board as far as first round, like what the projections are and stuff like that, to just kind of get the first couple picks really ready and queued up, and then going from there. But then outside of that, where can everybody find you? All 400 live viewers right now. Where can they find my decently good looking cousin who's not as good looking as me? Where can they follow you? Twitter, Instagram, OnlyFans, YouTube? What you got?
There's Apple Scouts on both Instagram and Twitter. APPLESCOUTS. And I post pretty much some Jaguars bits, but I mainly focus on draft prospects, free agency, all off-season details. I'll do trends of different players and breakouts, such like that during the NFL season. I'll also do training camp standouts, stuff like that, breakout players potentially. So that's mainly what I focus on throughout the entire year.
1 second, I'm just getting the thing. I'm gonna pop it up for you because I'm such a good cousin. Boom. Look at that. There we have it. But Ayden, I appreciate you for taking a lot of time out on your Tuesday evening. I know you got a lot of things you could be doing right now. I appreciate you for coming on, talking ball. For everybody that tuned in, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm going to let you go, Ayden. Literally all you got to do is just close out the tab. Appreciate you.
All right. Love you, cuz.
Later. Love you too. If I don't say that, I'll go. But everybody, that was Ayden Apicella, my cousin, at Apple Scouts on social media. New Era Prep's very own college football, NFL draft analyst. Absolute banger of an interview. I'm going to always say kids going places. Once again, he's the brains of the family. I'm the good looks. So appreciate everybody for tuning in once again on a Tuesday night. Still figuring out who I want as my guest tomorrow, making a couple calls. I don't even know what's going on tomorrow. We'll see once again if I'm dying or what the move is. But hope everybody has a great rest of your night. Vamos Gatos as always. The Cats are currently up 1-0 on, I believe, Tampa Bay, actually. So you love to see, on Tampa Bay. You love to see that, unless you're my sister, who is a bandwagon Tampa Bay Lightning fan. But have a great rest of your night, everybody. I will catch you in the next one.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness, walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If it's over, it's over, so just don't act like my love wasn't nothing. Like I wasn't the one you was holding that night, telling all of your secrets and hugging. Guess you right, it's too good to be true. What's the point? All I needed was you. But time after time, I just fussing and fighting each time that you do what you do. And it's cool. Mama said it was fish in the sea, I got lost in the pool. Knew it was coming, I watched how you move, how you turn your back on me and leave me to lose. Remember the text, how you said that you do. Said that you never leave, we would fight till it's due. But as it went on, I was fighting for you. Since the text turned green, why the f*** it ain't blue? Guess you done and I get it. Said you staying, you wanted my name and you left, so I'm guessing that you never meant it. Said you try and hold on cause the love was so strong, now I'm standing alone in this kitchen. Singing sad songs, but I'm knowing that this don't last long. If you leaving, then leave cause your bag's gone. But just know you can never come back home.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges.